great use of the chat, right? To Olivia's point, let me acknowledge recording. I think this is a great way to introduce this moment in time, is when you're hosting an event for Women's Council, as an example. I think it's awesome to start the meeting out in that way and say, you know, we'd like to welcome all of our Women's Council members and guests. And if you are not a Women's Council member at this time, we absolutely encourage you to participate. And if at any time you're interested in becoming a member, we have just put in the chat the link that allows you, well, or whatever, put the actual link in there that allows any guest to then clicking that and explore the process of actually becoming a member, right? So I wouldn't do just WCR.org. I would do, although that's not bad, I would do the full link, and I would maybe even take it one step further and click the join button and share that URL instead, if that makes sense. My name is Sam Powell. I'm a Women's Council member out of Chicago, Illinois. I'd like to introduce our co-host today, Joli Waldeck, out of Las Vegas, Nevada. Joli, say something to the crowd.
Hi guys, I'm so excited to be on here. Thank you, Sam, for introducing me.
And you're going to get us started, if I believe, based on our notes. Is that correct? Well, actually, no, it has me starting with the text.
Yes.
Yeah, hold on. I'm trying to do 3 things at once, which I'm going to stop doing right now because obviously I'm not doing it effectively. So one of the things that we learned is, let's say you were going to come on Zoom today and you were just like, wow, I wonder how my audio and video settings are. I wonder if the virtual background I created is going to look the way I wanted it to. You can go to, hey, Joli, while I'm telling them, would you put it in the chat? You can go to, this is why I can't multitask, zoom.us/test, and it allows you to have a Zoom with yourself, and you can test your audio settings, your video settings, your lighting, and I often find myself doing that before I join a Zoom meeting, because I have the ability with my camera to adjust the lighting, like the contrast, the brightness, etc. And so because my daylight changes all day long based on where I'm at in my home office, I like to go on the test, make sure that my 18-inch ring light is not too bright, that I'm not being washed out, because I can tweak it right on the fly, right? And so I like to go into the test just so I can see how I'm going to show up into a room, because I, you know, that first impression, I want to make a good entrance. So be early, have done a test, and then when you enter the room, either enter with your camera on, because you can with confidence now. But we encourage you to perhaps enter the room with your mute, your audio not on, in the event that you have some arbitrary noises going on in your background, that you don't walk into a conversation that's already in play with your audio on and some crazy sounds coming out of your space, right? If that makes sense. Okay, I'm gonna hand it over to Joli.
Cool, thank you. So with Zoom, you have a free version. Everyone has a free version, and then you have a paid version. Sam and I both have a pro version. I know most people have the pro version now, just if you've been hosting events. With the pro version, you have so with the free version, you have a 40-minute time max. With pro, you have unlimited. You actually have 24 hours, and then they would cut you off after 24 hours. With pro, you have up to 100 guests. You can go live on Facebook, YouTube. You go into settings to change that. You also have the ability to record. So with the pro version, you automatically have cloud space, and you can upgrade that. That starts at $40 a month if you want to upgrade more cloud space. Same with an audio plan. If you do have bigger tech projects, if you're in a bigger space, you can upgrade your audio systems through Zoom as well. With the free version, you don't have access to creating webinars and adding more participants. With the pro version, you can. So you can do an additional $40 a month for a webinar. And Sam and I will talk about webinars in a second, just on things that you can be doing with your network as well as with clients. And you can add more participants. So if you want up to 500 guests, you can pay $65. And if you want up to 1,000 guests, you can pay $105. That can be done per event if you want it, or you can pay monthly, whatever you prefer to do. Something that Sam and I, yes?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, as an example for the buying more participants, for Illinois, for our state of Illinois, our elections are this Friday. And so we only have the pro version 100 people. We don't know if we'll have 100 or more people. So we went ahead and bought extra participant package just in the event of, because we know that elections are a bit of a draw, and we wanted to make sure that any member that wanted to attend the elections could be a part of it. And so we actually bought a package so that we can have up to 500 members. We don't have 500 members in Women's Council in Illinois, but we don't care because it just made sense as a package offering for us to do it that way. Mm-hmm. Back to you.
Thanks. So something that Sam and I like to do is with the pro version, you have a free private 24/7 Zoom room. And this is nice when you're meeting with someone. So I know whenever Sam and I are brainstorming on a topic, she'll say, hey, meet me in my Zoom room. And she does a tiny URL. It's tinyurl.zoomwithsam. And you can also set up a password. Something that both of us do when we set up our private rooms is we set it up with our phone numbers. So number one, it's easy for you to remember, but it's also easy for anyone else to remember and pull up if you use it as a password, or you can use it as your Zoom ID.
Or it could be your Zoom ID and your password, frankly, right? So your cell phone number gets them in, and your cell phone number is the password, so that they're in quickly. And I love the idea of being able to do this on the fly, right? So Sabrina and I could be in a Zoom right now, and we could have a side private conversation about how, as instructors, we may want to have a sidebar conversation sometime later today or this week. I can send her my tiny URL, and I simply have it as a key command shortcut now, as you can only imagine. And it's tinyurl.com/Zoom with Sam, password, ask for Sam. And since I know that because I built it, it allows me to do it in conversation super easily and conveniently. And people are rather impressed that you have a private room that they can enter and it's open 24/7, meaning Sabrina and I could be there at 11 o'clock at night or 4 o'clock in the morning. It doesn't matter because it's yours to use however you so choose. Mm-hmm. Which side are you on, Joli, for me?
You're like pushed onto the side. So
okay, perfect.
I'm split screen right now.
I'm in the corner. Okay, thanks, Joli.
You're welcome. You're in the corner. Okay. Then talking about webinars, Sam and I were brainstorming on different event ideas, and Sam, you can chime in anytime you would like on these as well. So with webinars, it is an additional $40 a month. If you attended mid-year, you got to see webinars put into place. What the cool thing about webinars is when you can automatically set up a registration, and what will happen is they can link it with PayPal, and you can have attendees pay directly for a webinar when they sign up. Some events that we were talking about in using webinar for networks, as well as if you are using it in real estate, we were talking about personal, like a charity event. Sam, do you want to kind of chime in on this? Because this was your... Either.
Yeah, so as an example, I have I know a guy who's a mixologist, and he's been going around on Zoom events as a private entity, so like a party host as an example. So we pay him to be a mixologist, to be an instructor about mixology for a Zoom room, and there's a fee for him. And so we were like, oh, well, what's the best way to integrate him? Maybe a multi-state. Joli and I are talking about maybe Illinois and Las Vegas, us co-hosting together, having a mixologist for this, sort of cross-state networking opportunity. But if we're going to have to pay him a fee, is there a way for us to recoup that in a meaningful way? Well, through sponsorships obviously would be an answer, but also through attendees paying a minimal fee to attend. So they've got a little bit of skin in the game to be a part of it. They know what they're coming to be a part of. And in this case, whatever we're raising the money for, if it's a fee for the speaker, plus a charitable donation. There's so many layers to the way that you could play in that space with it, but that idea sort of came to mind, right? So you could have a professional paid speaker come into a space, and this could be a way to recoup some of the cost of having that speaker there. And what a beautiful way to open it up across the country, right? So I could see Tammy putting together something that isn't just exclusive to her state, but as a webinar, opens it up to our entire country so that more of us can be involved in what used to be super hyper local engagement only. What a great way to incorporate the talents that you're bringing to your state or network to a broader audience, and also make some money for your network, right? If people are really interested in that topic, I think that it's got some good leverage there.
Yeah, and Other ways that we were talking about is panel ideas. So if you have CEOs of organizations, top producers, if you wanted to do a panel, a webinar, you can do a panel on a regular Zoom as well. Webinar is nice, so that way they're all lined up. You don't have a mix of attendee faces on there as well. If you wanted it to look a little bit more panel wise, same with paid Zoom webinars. We were talking about even having installations as an option. So you can set up a webinar, and if you want to invite others from your local network as well as outside, you can do a webinar for installations, because that may have to come to it this year. So that we were, those were the ideas that we're talking about, and we'll talk about more of the ideas later when we do brainstorming. But I like the fact of using webinar. I know I just integrated it into Las Vegas's system, so I'm excited.
No, that's awesome. I was talking to one of our incoming network presidents in Las Vegas on the brain, in Arizona, and she is considering creating a webinar piece to her installation for her network, so that all of us in this room could virtually attend her installation. She was thinking a webinar, so it could be a minimal contribution, so we could be supporting each other's networks, not unlike we would be doing if, so in Illinois, I have 8 networks. I would attend every one of the installations that I possibly could, because A, it's the fun time to go, and B, and network. It's a great way to support them financially as their biggest fundraisers of the year typically. And there are often some kind of great prizes that you can enter drawings for and win. And so I loved all of those many layers about it. And if our installations for 2020 tend to have a more remote look and feel about them, let's get super creative about how we can be a part of it and recreate some of those same experiences that you could in person. So having like a Sabrina at an Illinois installation would be pretty badass, I got to admit, right? So being able to have guests be there with you and participate with you, and Tammy having an after party in Zoom with a DJ, like all of those things that we've already sort of had many experiences of can actually come back and be, and be ideas that are used, right? So it may make sense for some sort of, so if you're interested in doing a webinar as part of your installation, reach out to Marge Peck and be like, hey, Sam threw your name out and said you were thinking about it. And maybe you guys could brainstorm around how to do something like that by having a collection of people brainstorming around how to do it successfully. And I'm happy to be a party to that too. I think it'd be a great conversation. And maybe we put together a Zoom installation idea package that we can then have national share to all of our networks around the country, just so that they're not feeling stuck. So we can give them, cool ideas and concepts, and some stuff that has been test bedded successfully. I think that could go a long way during pandemic and past pandemic, obviously also. So I want to just run through very quickly. So if you get the pro version, right, that one step up, pay a little bit, have a sponsor pay for it. If you have a sponsor pay for it, give them some props in your virtual background as a thank you for being your Zoom, sponsor, whether you have a personal Zoom sponsor, you have a network Zoom sponsor, or a state Zoom sponsor, the virtual background, which we'll play with a little bit as we get through this. What a great way to feature them and thank them and promote them, right? So Joli and I have our own little logo. So we are considering ourselves the sponsors of this event, as it were, just for the purposes of showing you what's sort of possible. And we like our backgrounds right now in the respect that hers is her Nevada, logo crest. And I'm using our mayor's very well created Stay Home, Save Lives hashtag and banner that we see around our city quite a bit. So once you have paid for the next version of Zoom, right, that little bit higher version of Zoom, a lot of opportunities and flexibilities open up for you. One is in your profile, you can absolutely upload a photo, right? No surprise. But perhaps instead of uploading a photo, perhaps you choose to upload something more like a QR code, right? Perhaps you choose to, and I'm a poor example right now, because it's unfair, right? So this is super frustrating for me. If I click off if I say stop sharing video, what it's supposed to do is show you the image that I have on my profile for my Zoom, because it knows it's me in this room with you. But as you can see, if I click stop video now, all you get is my name, whatever name I put on my Zoom this morning. So it's not pulling my profile name, which it should be, but in my test, zoom.us/test, it absolutely brings in the name that I have in my profile, which is exactly what I want it to be displaying. So I'm frustrated that it's not displaying what I've asked it to display, and it's very inconsistent. So I'll be on a Zoom with Joli, and it'll show up the way I want. If I hit stop video, it'll show the QR code that I want it to show, which is to my business card. So know that it's inconsistent. It's not a perfect system, which is why we encourage checking everything when you're in the room, right? So as an example, the first thing that I want to encourage myself to do is I'm gonna right click on my name because I'm doing it from my computer and it's super easy this way, and click rename. And in any Zoom environment where you have an opportunity to network with other humanity outside of your network, outside of your state, I encourage you to make it your name, obviously, so they know who you are. If you're a realtor or a lender or whatever your profession is, maybe state that. And then the last thing I like to state is where I'm from, right? So now I've rechanged my name. So this is what I want my default to always be. So in my profile on Zoom, this is what my default is. So just be mindful of that, because we can't fix it all. And even if we tell Zoom that we're running into these frustrations, until they choose to do it as an update, just know that it's a piece of the puzzle. Okay. So when you first log on, make sure that your name is representative of what you want it to be for the room that you're in. So if you're with family, maybe it's something more playful or fun, like a nickname. So for me, if I was with my family, I could change mine to Mandy, because Mandy makes complete sense as Sam Powell's nickname growing up. But long story for another time over cocktails. When you're in your settings for Zoom, one of the first things I want you to be mindful of is make sure that you change the default of the time zone to your actual time zone. I've run into this a few times where I'm like, oh, you know, Zoom, my computer knows where I am, so I think Zoom knows where I am, and then I find myself scheduling Zoom times for the wrong times. So learn from my mistakes, change that default setting, makes a big difference. And also, if you're scheduling a Zoom with someone in another time zone, make sure that you're very clear with them. So Joli is 2 hours earlier than I am in Illinois. And I know we have people in different parts of the country. So if you're going to hold a meeting at 8, it'd be at 6 o'clock in the morning for Joli. So maybe just be a little respectful of that as well with your friends and peers. Zoom has the ability to integrate with some really sort of fun third-party solutions. Many of them that we won't use, but some that are super powerful are integrating it with your Outlook so that you can schedule a meeting in Outlook, make it a Zoom meeting right through Outlook, and it interfaces, so it creates the Zoom URL, it builds it right into the email concept for them, to the calendar invite, and in one step, it's already over to them. So maybe consider playing with that. It works with pretty much any email browser solution and your browser itself. So you can add Zoom as an extension to your browser. I use Chrome. So now I can just click Zoom and it'll take me to settings and allow me to create an event, invite people to a Zoom right now. It's just got some nice flexibility. So don't be afraid to check that out if that's something that seems meaningful to you. Again, you by default, you can't go live on Facebook. So as soon as you pay for the ability to have Pro, that means we can now go live on Facebook and YouTube and some other ancillary parties, but you have to activate that setting in your Zoom profile under settings. And so if anyone struggles with that, reach out to me and Joli and we can get you to it pretty quickly. But basically, your settings are broken into settings. And so it happens to be under in meeting advanced. So if you want to make a note, or Joli, if you want to throw that in the chat real quick. So if you want to activate the Go Live feature in your settings, make sure you scroll down to in meeting advanced, or if you go to email notifications, it's literally just above that section. So I always encourage scroll all the way down to the bottom, scroll up. As soon as you see email notifications, it's legit like the very next section right above that, and just activate the ones that make sense to you.
Sam?
Yes.
Yeah, Tammy has a question.
Yeah, go for it. Tammy, we can't hear you. Tammy, you have to unmute yourself, lover.
Well, y'all got all the control. I just knew y'all knew how to do that. Okay, so I have the Pro Zoom, and I'm on my phone, because what you said earlier about the time zones, I have messed up more meetings. Oh my gosh. I'm in the East Coast talking to people, you know, on the West Coast. So in my settings, I add my location, which is the East Coast.
Yes.
So if I'm scheduling a meeting, it will send to them on the West Coast the time that they need to come on, correct?
Yes, as long as they have their system set up properly. So you can't control them, but in the ideal world, yes. Yeah, so when I'm here in Chicago and my laptop knows that I'm in, you know, Central Standard time zone, yes. If I go to Florida and don't tell my computer to change the time zone, then no, I'm going to be off, but it's going to be my fault and not yours.
Okay. So
you can only do the, yeah. No, you should keep yours on your time zone always.
Okay. And I was trying to get into it on my phone, but I can't do that. So I guess I have to go into my Zoom in the computer and change it. Okay.
Yeah, it's probably the easiest to do it there. It's the most robust place to play in your settings is for sure on the website. And Tammy, do me this, you're welcome, but do me this exercise, mute yourself and then press and hold your space bar and talk to us. Well, that's it. So what I find interesting, Tammy, is we can't hear you. And it's not your fault. This is why it was a test. So unmute yourself and answer me this. What computer are you on? Are you on a Mac or a PC?
I'm on a AirBook Mac AirBook, excuse me.
So this is really surprising to me because the default setting in Zoom is supposed to be, if you come into a meeting muted, I'm currently just pressing my space bar to talk to you. As soon as I my mute comes back on. So it's a temporary unmute, but as Tammy has just taught us, it's a little bit inconsistent. So do me a favor, everyone feel free to test it because if it works for you, it's pretty fantastic to, you know, be in a meeting.
Mine works.
Yeah. So Tammy,
let me try again.
That works. You have to hold it down is the trick.
Yeah, press and hold. Keep it pressed down, Tammy, if you're not keeping it pressed down. She's a smart kid, so I'm pretty sure she was holding it down. Were you holding it down? She was holding it down. Okay, so let's move on because we got a lot of content and we only have 20. We want to get you out of here in time. Megan, did you have a question?
I have a question because, it's Sabrina actually asked it in the chat, but it is a good question. Your background doesn't move, or like you stay consistent, right? But Joli doesn't. Why is that?
Oh, yeah,
do you have a green screen?
We are going to get to that section, yes, and that's why we set up this demonstration this way. No, it's perfect. And what I love, Megan, is that you noticed, and that's where it becomes important.
Sabrina
in the conversation later. So hang tight, my friends. Hang tight. We have a lot more content to get through. Okay. Yeah. I encourage you to, even in your background, right? So I'm going to take you to a background real quick, just because it's simple and easy to do. When you click the right icon. So I've got a couple of different backgrounds that I, Sam Powell, use in meetings. And so here's one that's kind of simple, right? So as an example, like today, when I turn off my video and it did not give the image with the QR code that I wanted, then I would just change my background to be one that has what I wanted that to accomplish for me, right? So at any time during today's meeting, if you took out your phone because you're working from your computer and had your camera try to find the QR code on my background, it would allow you to add me into your phone, into your contacts right now while we're in a meeting together. And I think that that's a really powerful tool for all of us in environments like this when we're interacting with humanity around the country. So Sabrina and I just met each other. We fancy each other like really cool human beings. We want to exchange contact info. Well, we could go through the trouble of a private message and me send her my contact info and her send me mine, and then I have to do something with it. Or we can use other layers of technology that allow us to have it right there on the screen behind us, right? Now, we'll talk about green screen and not green screen, but even Joli, if Joli had a QR code on hers right now, you'd be able to use it and read it quite nicely. So it doesn't work beautifully across every platform, but it's one worth having in a pinch where it's important to get to someone. And you could also paste this background in the chat and someone could open that on their screen if they wanted to, and then do it later, right? Save that image down and have your QR code for later. But I have a better plan for you if that's the case. Don't send someone your QR code. Send someone, like for me in my Blue Dot Social app that I use for my business card, there's a link that I can send. So I would just copy that link, paste it in the chat. You click on that link and it's as if you did the QR code exercise, if that makes sense, okay? So I just think have that stuff on the ready. You know people are going to want to interact with you after a Zoom call. You know you're going to grow relationships, strengthen relationships, meet new people that you want to stay in contact with. Have solutions right on the ready in the call to make that a possibility with ease, right? If you do it more than once, create some kind of shortcut that makes it easy. Maybe you have a Zoom folder that has a digital notepad with the link to your contact management, like I would. Maybe you have a couple of images in there that are your go-to backgrounds. Maybe there's a notepad digital that you keep some special URLs like the Join Our Women's Council, maybe some specific to your actual network so that you're encouraging further engagement later by sharing your Facebook page, you know, your YouTube page, whatever may be relevant, okay? You get the idea. There is also a setting in your Zoom where you can smooth out your face called Touch Up My Appearance. I don't know if any of you are using that right now in your Zooms, but just know that it's available to you. It does make a nice difference, but it depends on your lighting on how much of a difference it kind of makes, right? So it got rid of, I used to have one wrinkle right here and now it's gone. And so I'm super grateful for Zoom for allowing that possibility. So Megan, perfect timing, because we are now going to talk a little bit about virtual backgrounds. And we wanted to do it early on in the class because we think it's an important segment. Eleanor has taught us already that you can have a virtual background video. You can Google for virtual background videos for Zoom. You can also create your own. I have not created my own video, so if you're interested in that, ask Google how to do it because it's not necessary for our class today. And it is kind of neat and fun, and maybe there's a relevant reason to use it in a local network if everyone had one or everyone was tasked to show up with their favorite video. But the stagnant ones have their own complexities that let's just focus on an image behind us for starters. So Joli, go ahead and turn off your virtual background so we can see what you've got going on behind you real quick.
There's a crazy mess, so probably not.
Oh, wow, how embarrassing. So Embarrassing Moments brought to you by Zoom.com. Sometimes people have virtual backgrounds because they're ashamed of the house they have and what's behind them. So at this time, I'm gonna go to Kate Kelly. Hey, Kate Kelly, would you be willing to turn off your Zoom for a hot second to show us what you have going on back there? And show us what's behind the curtain? No, actually you don't have to do it, Kate, but I'm just saying everyone's environment is very different.
There we go.
Yeah, so as you can see, Kate Kelly has a green screen behind her and the corner of her desk shows up in every frame because the green screen isn't covering that corner of her desk. So it's not perfect. It's not meant to be perfect. It's meant to be used in ways that feel meaningful to you. So here I am with no virtual background. Now look, my green screen, it's not stretched beautifully. It's got wrinkles. It's not a perfect solution. Can I tighten it up? Yes. And have I in the past? Yes. One of the things that I want to share with you about the powerful use of an actual green screen is this ability. You can see that my hair separates. It's nice that I have good spikies today. That my hair pops off the background differently than Joli's does. And Kate's pops off her background a little better than Joli's hair does. If Joli's hair was free flowing, it'd be even more obvious to us right now, but I'm going to do a quick screen share just so I can show you this one other piece that we think is important to share. And it's relatively minimal. So hold on. All right. So confirm Joli that you're able to see my virtual background.
Yes.
Okay, so it's on none right now. So what's kind of beautiful is if I pick a virtual background, this little thing shows up here, right? So it wasn't there on none, right? There's nothing over here. But as soon as I pick a virtual background, then this little dot shows up. And if I click that little dot, it tells you what it's for, but it basically allows me, the user, to select the green that's behind me for it to drop out. So throughout the day, Sam Powell selects a different green. because my virtual background starts to blink and flicker, and it's because there are variants of green behind me, right? It's just part of the complexity of, you know, condo living, natural light. I'm not set up in a studio. I have one 18-inch ring light here. I have a very large bank of windows over here, and basically no light coming in from over here. So it's pretty much lopsided for a bit of the day. So you can pick a green screen, you can pick the green, and sometimes I have to like get a little creative and keep playing with it until the green screen plays nice with the environment that I'm in at that moment, okay? So I'm gonna stop sharing at the moment. Because the main purpose is, if you have a green screen, know that that's a setting that will allow you to further enhance your experience, your viewers' experience. And if you go through the trouble of creating a background, it might as well be a nice background, meaning it's not going to flicker the whole time and be a visual nuisance to your audience. And that's what happens to me, is I start to see a corner flicker and it drives me batty, and then I end up taking my background off and raising my green screen out of the way. There are so many solutions for buying green screens too. If you were on Amazon, easier to buy now than it was a little while ago when everyone was buying them. But just a green piece of fabric, a blue piece of fabric, to be perfectly honest, it could be just about any color of fabric you chose to hang behind you, as long as it was something that you're not wearing and is not kind of a color within your complexity. Is that the word I wanted? No, in your what doesn't matter, the way you look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So example, tattoos, it don't choose a color that has, or it'll look like you have a hole in your arm. Just
well, and yeah, it actually it's not doing it today, but there's a lot of green in this one, and so sometimes it falls out and goes invisible. So the beauty is, because you can select what color for it to get rid of, you can pick any background back there at all. You don't have to pay for a green screen. You can have a black sheet that you put behind you, but if you have black hair, you're not going to have any hair. So there you go. Play with that. Okay. Let's move this along because we are at 10:34. Joli's going to take us into some meeting settings for a hot minute and talk a little bit about recordings.
Yeah. So first, I did put in the chat our Canva 101 recording. So if you want to work on Zoom backgrounds, we have a whole segment on how to set up a Zoom background on that. I did put that in there, and I also put a help, like a URL, just kind of some helpful setting tips for Zoom as well. So meetings, just a couple of reminders. The first thing is, you can always set up repeat meetings. So you can do board meetings, family gatherings, our afternoon delight. When Sam was doing crafts and cocktails, that was a repeat thing. So you don't have to go in there all the time. When you do a repeat meeting, you can set it up for attendees to register every single time if you want them to register, or register once and be done. So Las Vegas did a workout class every Friday in April and May, and so we set that up specifically for that, and that way no one had to re-register. When hosting your meeting, always try to do a co-host, just in case if you don't have good internet. Example, myself or Sam, if we have bad internet some days. Sam, can you talk? Because I feel like you're muted. Okay, you're really quiet. Okay.
I know, I'm sorry.
So if you can set up co-host, that way if you do get kicked off, someone is automatically set as a host. When you're setting up your meeting, always talk to the participants. If you are having a speaker, see if they want to do a test run, make sure that everything is working on their end, not day of. That was more common in the beginning of Zoom a couple months ago. Now it's less common, but always just check in, make sure everyone is set up, and let people know if it is going to be recorded. They do have an option to opt out and come back once it is not recorded. For your Zoom call, you can set it up to where you select stop recording, and that is when they can come back into it. Let's see, what else? And just making sure that you have, if you do record it, you know how to record it. So on the bottom, there is going to be a little record feature. If you do have the pro version, you can choose if it goes to a cloud, which that's normally what I do, or you can set it up to your computer. The nice thing about the cloud is it records 3 ways. It records just the audio. So if you wanted to do a podcast, this is a really cool way to record it and just take the audio from it. You can set it up that it records everything, including the chat, And you can also share via that. If you don't want to download it and upload it to a YouTube channel, you can share the link to the recorded section and send it out. People can also have to register to watch the recording, which is a nice way to track who's watching it as well. And you can save the panelist chat through the recording, and that will also pop up. So there's different ways to do recordings. To find recordings, it's just on the zoom.us site. It's on the left-hand side, and it specifically says recording, and you can see every recording that you have, if it is on the cloud, or it will tell you if you downloaded it to your computer. If you downloaded it to your computer, you can't have any of the features of sharing it via a link or registering.
Makes sense. And I highly encourage, like, be mindful of what's your intended use of this call, as it were. Because maybe you want all of the participants, maybe you're having all of the participants do something that is very visual in nature, like the passing of the pen. I don't know if you've seen fun stuff like that on Zoom, but they would obviously record all of the gallery for that experience, right? Or do a screen recording using a different technology. But I love that Zoom is robust enough that it's like, do you want it to record as if it's a panel? And so just these three people who are speaking. Do you want it to record the reactions? Because it can record the panel and your reactions in your gallery all at the same time, and any communications that are happening in the chat conversations. So I think that there's some pretty powerful layers to it. When Joli was talking about it recording in the cloud, I think that's your best use of the cloud. And I would have it recorded in all of those ways, right? So then you've got some flexibility. And I would encourage taking it out of their cloud so that you're not paying for extra storage over time, uploading it where it belongs. So uploading it to YouTube, uploading it to a podcast if that's where the audio is going, uploading it to maybe a Dropbox that's more affordable. Look at the cost benefit, and also talk to your network about this concept of maybe paying for space if you want to create or curate a library of trainings and education and recordings of your meetings for any reason, instead of that falling on Tammy or Sabrina or Kate to have and manage in space and pay for it. Perhaps that's another expense that we put on the networks in conversation. Any questions? Good.
We have, hold on, we have two.
Yep.
Okay. Kay asked, when you save the chat, do all messages show? And we'll talk about that in a second, about saving all the messages. And then, do you think it is better to stream live from Zoom to Facebook, or use Be Live to stream live on Facebook?
You know, there's no wrong answer on where to stream. What I can tell you is that it's technology, and so it's finicky. So some days you can't go live to Facebook. Like, there's some kind of hiccup that happens, whether it's your connection or an issue with Facebook, who knows? I've heard people express this concern, like Marky and Carrie have run into snags on this when they've tried to do some of their live broadcasts, and they just have a plan B, always have a plan B. So maybe your plan B is we're gonna go live to YouTube instead. Or maybe your plan B is we're going to absolutely record it, and then we're going to immediately share it in a way that's meaningful, so that people that couldn't watch it live because we couldn't make it live can watch it in a reshare in a way, right? So just be mindful of that and go with the flow, as it were. Try not to get too stressed out about it, but come from a place of, if I do it this way or this way or this way or this way, what are my options? And when one fails me, how can I pivot to try and just recover as quickly as possible and keep the conversation going, right? So I'm currently experiencing, I have really awesome Bluetooth headset, 4 months, 0 problems. All of a sudden, just like last week, I've been dropped off of the Zoom just in audio a couple of times while I'm presenting, while I'm teaching. And when I'm teaching with screen share, I can't see you. Like, I don't get to see you guys. And so the only way they could let me know that I was talking to myself and no one could hear me was, so this is your nugget. If you have a presenter and their audio goes, cancel whoever a host or co-host is, cancel their screen share immediately, because then I visually see the gallery and I'm not supposed to see the gallery. So I'm just like, oh, something happened. And they're like, and then you see all the litany of, we can't hear you, we can't hear you. I was on a Zoom call once presenting, and Sylvia Seabolt was in the room, and I was super stoked that she was in the room. And then all of a sudden I'm getting text messages from her, and I'm just like, what gives? I'm teaching, you're in the classroom. No, she was trying to tell me my audio had fallen off. So if someone texts you during a Zoom call who's in your Zoom call, look at the text. Lesson number 2, learn from Sam's mistakes. Thanks, Sylvia, I love you. And that's also how we learn. Just turn off their screen share because they don't know. They don't know that you can't hear them unless you guys are making some kind of noises back there. Like Joli saying, Sam, you're too quiet. When you're presenting, that's how it feels. It feels very quiet, like you're in this weird void. And so I sometimes will start a presentation and say, please press and hold your space bar if you need to sneeze, fart, burp, or cough. So I know there's a human being in the room. So don't be afraid to make some kind of noise or cackle or giggle or anything to let the speaker know that there are actually human beings breathing on the other side of their screens, because it gets a little bit crazy. We're talking about the chat, saving the chat. You have flexibility in how to save the chat as the host and as a participant. So as a participant, you can save your entire experience as a host. As a participant. So it would, if I saved it down and was having private conversations with Tammy, I would get my private conversations as well as everyone's conversations to everyone. I could save it as just the everyone conversations, and then I would lose all of my private conversations. So it really just depends on what you're looking to accomplish on why you'd save it one way or the other. And perhaps if you're a host, save it both ways, because maybe there is information in the private conversations that you want, and there is information in the everyone share that you want. So just out of habit, maybe save it down both ways, label them properly. So that you're not sharing the private one by accident, okay? And I've never done that, or I'd say don't make that mistake like I have. All right, so we're talking about screen share a little bit. One of the things that we learned in presenting classes together is, how the screen, the bar shows up at the top when you hit screen share. And it says, click here and then pick a screen to share. Experience that with yourselves, but what we learned is you can move that bar. So if that bar is in a funny place on your screen and it is annoying to you, you can move that screen share bar anywhere you want, okay? So that's sort of our takeaway there. And you can select, so depending on the computer that you're on, however many windows you might have open, not unlike on your phone that you can scroll through all your applications. When you go to screen share, it will let you handpick which version of the screen you want everyone to see. So just be super mindful and careful of that. We've also found that there are things that we can't share. So in preparing for class today, we wanted to be able to show you some of the settings that you have access to as a host under the security bar on our bottom. So because this is a national host and they're paying for Pro, and Joli and I are co-hosts, we get the benefit of all of the features that they've granted us permission to have. So under security, I'm able to lock the meeting so no one else can enter. I'm able to enable the waiting room and disable the waiting room in a hot second. So if I enabled the waiting room and Kate Kelly was needed to be sent to the principal's office, I could kick her out into the waiting room, and then I can talk to the waiting room and explain to her why I put her in the waiting room, and maybe she could go put a shirt on or whatever the case might be. You know what I mean? Use it however you feel, but here are just some examples that I think are, real life working examples that have possibility. So as an example, let's show you that screen share because I captured it as an image just for you. And now I have to find that screen because that's the other thing that happens. Okay. So you can see in this, so because I have the Pro version, and I've set up some settings in the back end if this was my version of Zoom, so this is Nationals, but my settings are the same. So it allows us to lock the meeting, enable, we can start sharing screen, we can enable chat and not enable chat for the participants. We can make it so that you can't share the screen, but only the host and co-host can. So you've got a lot of flexibility. We can make it so you can't rename yourself, which I think is just kind of mean. Because if you came from a fun cocktail hour the night before and we're playing Cards with Humanity and you use your name placeholder as where you put your answers, which I think is super fun and a great use of that space, make sure you change your name back before you leave your room, which we have a whole section on what to do before you leave your room. And that's one of the reasons is make your name what you want it to professionally be for the next Zoom you enter, because that host may have made it so that you can't change your name and you don't know it. And they don't often do it on purpose, but now that you know where to send them, you can send them to make it so that you guys can change your names And like when we did our elections through National, when they had us all change our name so that it had hashtag that we were a governing board member or a voting member, what a great use of that tool as well. And in order to use that feature, you'd have to obviously make it so that everyone could change their name, okay? So instead of taking you to all of the sections along the bottom, that was one of our most important ones. And especially if you use the private room like I do. So I use my private room constantly all day long. I'll have people coming in for meetings, scheduled meetings, sometimes impromptu, unscheduled meetings. As soon as they enter the room with me, first of all, its default is to have a waiting room. So even if Megan and I were scheduled to meet at 11 o'clock, I would have a waiting room. She would be in the waiting room and then I'd let her in, right? So I'd be like getting ready for my 11 o'clock. I'm already there. Now I'm ready for Megan to enter the room. I bring her in the room and then I immediately lock the room so no one else can come in. Does that make sense? Just be mindful of those things. There's a lot of layers of user friendliness that it has. As a host and a co-host, we can mute and unmute everyone and individually. To Tammy's point, she expected us to be on our game as your host and unmute her when she raised her hand, which I can't fault her for because she's absolutely correct. That's a great way to do it. As you may have noticed, Tammy raised her hand. Joli, why don't you go ahead and raise your hand? You can use this feature. You've seen it used before. I hope some of this is just repeat information, but what a great way to control conversation. In a board meeting, as an example, you can be like, please raise your hand when you want to make a comment. And then as a host, you can unmute them and then say, you know, hey, Joli, what's your question?
As a co-host, I cannot.
You can't raise your own hand?
No.
You can just mute.
But now if you go into, Sam, go into participants really quick since we're all on.
Yeah,
here.
I'm in there.
You have the option now to respond. Do you see that?
Yeah, yes, no. Oh, and there's a more too. So there's thumbs up, thumbs down. Here's my coffee.
Oh, there's the hand raising. Okay, so you have options. So with the new Zoom update, you have ways to respond, which is kind of cool. So yes, no, go slower, go faster. That's a fun one.
Yeah, I've never seen anyone push the go slower, go faster. But it's in part because we're not banging on the tool as a tool. So one of the things that I would always encourage you to do, regardless of the application, is really familiarize yourself with everything. Click on everything. You can't break it. Worst case, you just reinstall the software, right? You really can't destroy your computer. So don't be afraid to explore. That's, you know, we're all only self-taught. And many of these things that we're doing. And the way we learn about it is what we like to call is just bang on it, beat it up. You can't really break it. So you can enable the waiting room, use the waiting room however you might need to. One of the things that we highly recommend or encourage, if you have realtors in the room that are from different companies, that perhaps at the beginning of every meeting, you read something like our antitrust notice that we all are very familiar with, but be mindful of that. Maybe have that on the ready in your Zoom toolkit so that if it's appropriate for someone to read it, that you could paste it in the chat, ask someone to read it, or just read it aloud yourself, right? But for audience participation, I think the use of the chat is a good way because now everyone's been provided it, someone reads it aloud, it's been recorded, and it's in the chat that it was done on the top of the call. We're gonna talk about breakout. Go ahead.
Sabrina asked, can you go over how to set up a private room again? Are you talking, Sabrina, are you talking about our, the pro version private room? That's automatically set up. You just have to, you can change the ID and you can change the password on that if you wanted something specific.
So like Sam was saying that she had her private that never changes. Is that what that is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it'll be set up on pro.
Okay. All right. That's what I want.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, that's kind of the beauty of it, to be perfectly honest. Yeah. And then I made the tiny URL for it just so it's just more fun and friendly than the Zoom link that you get, which I've never been a fan of. Okay. So we're gonna jump through some breakout rooms and concepts. We are not gonna send you to a breakout room because we don't want to expand the time on this for you. But as a host, you have a lot of control over the breakout rooms. You can handpick who's going into what rooms. You can have it auto divide people into various rooms. I don't know this and I apologize. I don't believe that I can choose a breakout room to go into. I think the host controls that piece of the puzzle. I think it would be kind of a nice enhancement down the road for events that we put on. If we're going to have breakout rooms, kind of like liken it to a, not round robin, not speed dating, but speed networking. So let's say you have a lender in a room and an attorney in a room, and you want people to spend 5 minutes in each of the rooms. It'd be great if they could hop out and go into the next room themselves. So I see that as a sort of a future growth of this tool. But for now, as the organizer, you want to build how you want that piece to play. So you want to be mindful of it. You want to be mindful of, if you know there's going to be 50 people, how many rooms you want to break them out into, who you want as your chair, as it were, your host within those rooms. So I would assign those first and then send the people to their rooms. So that's a good thing to test run with a small group of people, just to be playful in a space to see how that works. As the host, we can control how long you're in those rooms. We can end the breakout rooms and bring everyone back to the main room. When we go to end a breakout session, it tells you in the breakout room how much time remains before we're dragging you back into the main room. And it also lets you leave the room at any time. And so as an example, as part of professional standards, I do mediation and arbitration and hearings and such. And we're doing those via Zoom now, as you can only imagine. And so we are using those breakout rooms for private conversations. So we can have, you know, a witness in a waiting room and not bring them in until it's appropriate, and then kick them out of the meeting so that they're gone and lock the meeting. We can send, you know, defendant and their counsel into a breakout room, because we can handpick and send them to a room. And then we've had them sit in that room, which felt like forever. And we're like, well, how do we go in there? So the staff for the mediation, I sent her into the room to check in on them. So it wasn't me walking into a conversation. So just be mindful of these things and the, just the complexity of what you can use these for. Board meeting, obviously we thought it'd be great for board meetings. If you had committees, you could send the committees to rooms and bring them back. You could send people for brainstorming and bring them back, things that you've experienced, right? So, but try to think outside the box. We think something like a first-time home buyer seminar, first-time home seller seminar, that you could be putting these on weekly or monthly and get some traction with humanity out there, that when we're all released is going to be looking to buy or sell or rent or invest, etc. Even a short sale seminar to help people understand the complexities. The other thing that's possible, and Joli, remind me because I don't remember us talking about this a whole lot, but if it's a webinar, guests can come in anonymously, which I think is super powerful for like a short sale seminar, even a first-time home buyer or a first-time home seller seminar. If you make it a free webinar that they don't have to pay, but they have to register to come, just to know, to market that they can come as an unknown and not share their name with you if they don't want to, if they just want to come to learn. Also know that probably other realtors are going to come and see how you're putting on a seminar, but just be mindful of that. But you'll have already known who registered, if that makes sense. So you'll see who registered, but the whole room, no one will know who each other is. I've never experienced that. So I'd love to get a small group of us to play with that as a test run. So we know what it is, what the experience is like as a user, and what the experience is like as a host or the participants in the room with that. So Joli, let's consider doing something like that together at some point.
And the nice thing about the webinar is some of us experience this at mid-year, is the webinar feature. So you don't see who's watching. It'll tell you like there's, 200 people watching, but it won't tell you who, the names. And you can either send questions directly to the host and the panelist, or you can send them so everyone can see it. So that is nice about webinar, is no one can see who's watching unless the host or any co-hosts are.
Gotcha. Yeah, I had read somewhere that they could come in anonymously. So that led me to believe that there was a way to see them or not see them as a potential setting in the webinar. But we can do a deeper dive in the webinar if anyone's interested in incorporating that. Let's just have another little workshop around that. We also think it's appropriate to have a little bit of a conversation about Zoom etiquette in our last 5 minutes. Like we encourage, whenever possible, coming as a video, like being a live person in the room, because it, as you can imagine, even in the few where we're not seeing their faces, it changes the experience that we have together. Now, know that as a host or co-host, actually, can you as a viewer, Sabrina, I'm curious, I think you can you change how you see everyone? Joli, you know how we can say hide all of the non-videos?
They can't do hide non-videos, but they can choose like gallery view. They can choose speaker view.
But I can under, and so that's why I'm wondering if everyone can, because for me, I'm just under settings. And so I did it under video settings. So everyone go to your video settings and tell me if because I think you get to create your own meeting experience. So go under the video settings and tell me under meetings if you can hide non-video participants.
You have to actually click on the little 3 dots. If you go up to the 3 dots on that person, so like if I went to Cindy,
I'm able to do it to everyone at once.
No, we have to go individually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, as a participant.
As a participant.
Well, and so there we go. That's our lesson. So as a host, I forever now am going to control my experience. I love knowing the people that are in the room, but once I know they're in the room, if they pop on video, then they'll pop up back in the room. But I don't, you know, just staring at people's names or a graphic is not nearly as fun and embracing for me. And so you can create your own experience. And I guess that's the big takeaway.
Sam, this is Regina.
Yeah.
I am able to go under audio under my Zoom settings and hide everybody, which is really cool because I didn't know that. Thank you for that. But I
so you just went to video set.
I have a paid account.
That's probably why. Sabrina, are you on a free account right now for Zoom or paid?
Well, you know what? I didn't sign into my Zoom. I do have a paid account, but I just hit the link. So I don't think it pulled in my actual personal Zoom.
So it's possible, but unconfirmed, because Regina has the same controls that I do, that it might have something to do with the version that you have. Tammy,
so same for me.
Oh,
sorry. Same for me. I'm like
Go ahead.
Sabrina. I have to click on the 3 dots. I don't have it under the video thing.
Okay. And are you a paid version of Zoom as well?
I just did the link as well. I mean, I do have one, but right now I just did the link. So
fair enough. Tammy?
So Sam, I'm on a free account and I was able to go in and hide participants underneath the video settings.
So I have no answer. I got nothing. But we're going to give the floor to Tammy now because she raised her hand, people. Damn it. Thanks for being a prime example of Zoom etiquette right here. Go ahead, Tammy.
Okay. Sabrina raised a good point. I have my own Zoom account, but I logged into your Zoom. Is it better for me to use my own account and just put in your number, the meeting number? Because honestly, I done a Zoom class this morning, and I logged into their link, but I was the presenter trying to show. It was a nightmare. I mean, it just was.
As a control freak, I always want to A, host if at all possible, and B, register if at all possible, because then when I stop video, it will be my profile image that I have in Zoom, and so then it works the way I want it to work. So whenever possible, you want to be in control of those pieces. As a guest, register and get your own link, because that's different. Your experience is slightly different, and apparently your access points become slightly different too. So what a great lesson that we wouldn't have learned otherwise. But I do love being able to hide all the non-video participants and knowing that you can do that. I think it's just kind of cool.
Well, yeah,
and you
can
it
makes the meeting look better because some people are. Yeah, I said the same thing today. I want to see all your faces. That's what I'm on Zoom for, y'all. I don't want to see your name. I want to see. Here's the thing about Zoom etiquette. As much as I've been in seminars where if your video's not on, they actually kick you out of the seminar, which I think is unfortunate. And this is why. Not everyone has the technology that allows you to be on live video right now, right? So all I need is my video camera to die. And now I can't join you. And now I can't attend the class. So those kind of things have always bothered me. Maybe I can only do it on my phone, and it doesn't make any sense for you to see up my nose in my car. You know what I mean? Like there are legitimate reasons to not have your video on and to not have your audio on. So my only ask from a Zoom etiquette is welcome everyone to come as they are. Let them participate at the level that they want to participate. Be grateful that they're in the room. We have 16 participants and only 8 of us are showing video right now, according to my screen. Are people still learning by being here? Absolutely. There we go. And there's Kate Kelly, like number 9.
So just be mindful of that. Everyone does not have the setup that I have. Not everyone can have badass green screen and backgrounds and blah, 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 blah. There are certain system softwares that you can't have a virtual background at all. Like it's not even an option for you because of the technology that you happen to have, and respect the technology that they happen to have. That's my 2 cents on that one. But if you can share your video, please share your video and be engaged and communicate, participate, because it's a much different experience as an instructor or a panel if no one has questions and no one's engaging and you really are just talking into a recording in a way, right? So be there for your participants, your host, whatever, you know what I'm gonna say. We also wanna say before ending your session, a couple of things that we already talked about. Sometimes it's appropriate to stop recording before you're actually done, right? So as a board meeting, you could have an entire, or anything, right? You could have a reason for recording, and then you could be like, all right, at this time, we're gonna stop recording. And we did this for Women's Council meetings quite a bit. We'd be like, meet the candidates, and then after the presentation of them answering questions, we would go private and then have different level of intimate conversations with those that didn't need to be public. Or it could have been public. It just depends on what you're trying to accomplish. So recording when to stop and when to end your meeting. Some people don't know how to leave a meeting. Like they really struggle on their phone or on their computer on wanting to just get out. It depends on what your device you're on where that option is. And so you can, as a host, see someone struggling, and maybe Tammy and Joli and I want to stay behind and have a little debriefing, but we have Megan who just won't leave. We love you, Megan, but you just won't leave. And so as a host, we can not only unmute her or ask her to unmute, but we can actually put her in the waiting room, remove her from the meeting. So I don't know if you saw some of the news broadcasts where people were hacking into Zoom rooms and just being rude and inappropriate. At least you have the ability to remove people from a room. So if something inappropriate begins to happen, just know that you have some flexibility and control there. And also another good reason to have more than one host or co-host, so that if the speaker's speaking, you can have a co-host who's monitoring the chat. If it's a webinar, monitoring the question and answers, which is another feature that shows up in a webinar, and control the experience of the recording in a way if the gallery's being recorded. If someone's being obnoxious, you know, the host can remove them from the room, or the co-host, right? Just to make it a better performance in a way. We can allow, like I can allow Megan to record this Zoom as well. I don't know if you're aware of that as a feature. So we can allow in our settings behind the scenes before we start this Zoom, and on the fly. So as I've clicked on the 3 little dots over Megan, one of the options is allow record. One of the options is spotlight her video, so that maybe I just want to stare at her during the meeting. I don't know, because she'll pop up if she's the speaker. I can rename her. So if she's having trouble or she's on her phone and her name is not what she wants it to be, we have the ability to interact with them. So I think that that's kind of cool. And if you're in a meeting with like 100 people and some of your best friends are in the meeting and you really just want to hang out with them visually while you're in the meeting and maybe be chatting with them and waiting for reactions. I'm not saying I've done this, but I'm saying it's possible. If you click on the 3 little dots above someone like Megan, and I know this because people tell me they do it about me from time to time, is I can pin Megan's video on my first screen or my second screen. So if I don't want to see Megan and I have 2 screens, I can just be like, bye-bye, and put her on the second screen. I would never do that to Megan because she makes good facial expressions. But there are times when it's appropriate to do these things, and I just love that these flexibilities are here. So if you're hosting, remember to download the chat in the 2 different ways, save them appropriately. You can choose where to save the chats. Or the chats are automatically saved in your Zoom folder that's created when you install Zoom. The video, of course, is being recorded, so know where it's being recorded and be mindful of what your next steps are with that. Don't forget to rename yourself if that's appropriate. Also, don't forget to change your background, your virtual background. If you are in late night fun with friends and you're doing inappropriate Zoom background contests, just be mindful to maybe change your background back to something more appropriate for the next day. So we're nearly finished, so thanks for sticking around. Go ahead, Joli.
Well, we have, Megan, do you have a question? Your hand was up. No? Okay. Kay, if you want to unmute yourself.
Hey, this is great information. Thanks for some of these reminders. I was gonna say that I mistakenly removed someone that I didn't, and when you do that, they cannot come back. So
Oh, that's
they
good.
texted me and like, Kate, what happened? And I can't log back in. So be careful of that.
Yeah, so that's an accidental click. I get it. Intentionally removing, they can never come back. That's good to know because I didn't know that. I have put people in the waiting room though, who hung out after a meet, and then I'd ask them, "Hey, did you want to come back in?" And then we'd bring them back in.
No, I've only had, so the other thing that initially that some of our networks in California were doing was they were promoting their online programs through Eventbrite. And as you guys know, that Eventbrite is public. So you type in eventbrite.com and San Diego, and every Zoom training known to man with Eventbrite, if it's public, will show up. And so a couple of our networks, we had some random people that showed up that we didn't know who they were. And so we were able to remove them, but it was a good training lesson for our networks that, you know, really be careful of how you are advertising your
we didn't turn them into future members. Okay.
Well, they were interesting guys. Yeah.
No, duly noted. Duly noted. Got it.
They were interested in women's council. Right.
Gotcha. Hey, Joli, while we wrap up meeting, share with them some ideas for Zoom uses, and I'm going to screen share our final Zoom etiquette image that we wanted to share, so we can wrap this up for you guys.
So there's with different things that you can do with Zoom, you can what we had scavenger hunt we were talking about, the gibberish situation. I don't even know how to explain that. So the best way to say it is they would put up a gibberish sentence on the screen, and you had to kind of decide what it was. And so there are different activities that you can do. I'll put it in the chat, a link with all sorts of different ideas. And
even in our notes, Joli, we were talking about things like meetings with clients, listing walkthroughs. Yeah, so not necessarily the fun stuff, but some of the practical uses, because I can't multitask well. I'm sorry.
Do you need a screen share? I have it right.
Well, why don't you tackle it?
Okay.
Yeah, so we just wanted to be mindful in closing. You know, if you're not using Zoom for some of your business practicums, maybe consider doing it. I'm listing a property that I've never ever seen. I may not even ever see it because she has dogs and has to be home to let them out. We may never even put it on a lockbox. We did a Zoom call. She walked me through the property. I have access to the original listing from when she bought it. And we're able to do everything that we need to as if we were face-to-face because of the technology. And what a great use of this kind of experience and opportunity to not miss a beat in your business, right? So I'm going to a physical listing meeting at 1 o'clock, but how beautiful is it to integrate these? I don't have to be present. We don't have to be close to each other. We protect each other from getting sick. And what a great way to use it, right? So I have owners in my own building who want to have face-to-face meetings. And even though I can walk down the hallway and stand 6 feet away from them and have a conversation through a hot mask, I refuse. I'm like, meet me in my Zoom room so that we can not have a mask on. We can still see each other. We can interact. We can interrupt each other just as if we were standing face to face. It's the closest thing I can recreate to that experience and still be crazy comfortable myself and not have a private conversation in a public hallway in our building. And I didn't want to leave my condo, but I digress. So integrating it into your business, if you're not already, just being thoughtful and mindful of those things. Previewing properties with a client, you could do on a Zoom or a FaceTime. You can do it in so many different ways. Like final walkthroughs, listing walkthroughs. Of course, the first-time home buyer, first-time home seller seminars, this concept of short sale and foreclosures, anyone who is finding themselves up against a wall and having concerns about their finances and paying for their property, be a resource, be a viable and approachable resource to people. Joli and I do a class on Facebook 2.0 where we talk about using marketplace and offers in your real estate business. And that's a great place to put things like these seminars, a great place to put every one of your listings for sale, every one of your rentals available. We're just, just tap into these technologies and continue to use them to their maximum capacity. Joli shared the screen. Is it shared already?
Yes.
So a buddy of ours put together this image of all the things not to do and to do on Zoom, and it's all her, which is my favorite part because we have her permission to use this image. So just in closing, remember to, Joli, read what hers says because I can't read them.
No vaping, no drinking, make sure you wear clothes, no Zooming in the bathroom, no pull time during work hours, which I've seen multiple times.
I'm breaking that one. I'm breaking that one.
And apparently she said no putting on makeup during Zoom, which is also appropriate. So like I get it, but yeah.
I've seen you put makeup on.
I have, but only with you. So
in pre-Zoom meetings, and I'm sitting there thinking she knows I'm watching her, right? And it took me a minute because I don't wear makeup to realize that she's using her video as a mirror. And I was just like, all right, that's kind of genius. And then at the same time, I'm like, she knows this is like odd for someone across the screen to be watching you do. Yeah, I loved it.
But we're comfortable enough. So
yeah, be you in the Zoom, whatever that looks like, right? So I'm going to be me, as you well know, right? I have a beer keg right back here behind the screen, and I will go and get a drink so that don't do alcohol, if it's a happy hour. I'm just saying. So that concludes sort of our lesson on what we wanted to make sure that we covered with you. Does anyone have any questions, anything you'd like to share about a way that you've seen Zoom used that's creative and unique that we should all hear about together, or a way that you'd like to use it now that you've got a little bit more under your belt? Talk to us, and then let's get you out of here. Yes, Megan.
I have a quick question. Does someone see if you remove them or like from your screen, or if you pin them or whatever? Do they see that on their end? Like if you don't want to just see their name, right? Like you were saying, do they get that notice? Like, hey.
I'm going to hit pin you to the first screen. And tell me if it told you anything. I don't believe it does.
No.
But everyone experienced this because it didn't do it the way that I thought that it would. And maybe it's because you're talking now. If I go gallery, are you still? So we can't really test. Well, maybe I have to. Let me see everyone. That's a really good question. I'm going to not hide the videos so that I can have two screens. Nope, I can still have everyone on one screen. So I can't answer that question, but I can, it appears that it doesn't tell you that I've put you where I want you.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Any other questions or shares? Okay, you did not receive a notification. Got it, cool. Cool. All right, well, we don't want to keep you for any longer in your day. We really appreciate you being a part of this with us. If you have follow-up questions, concerns, want to do a test, you just need bodies in a room for a test, let us know. We're happy to play in that space and help make everyone's experiences the best that they can be. We do lots of Zoom testing. Like every time I speak, oftentimes someone will want to meet an hour early or a day early just to test things on their end. And what a great time to go over some protocol, do some real planning about how the flow of that presentation is going to go, or how you're going to interact with the room. Meaning, are you going to let people respectfully interrupt to ask questions, or are you going to make everyone wait until the end and then answer all of the questions that are sitting in the chat? There's so many ways to sort of address how you want to control the aspects of the experience for everyone that's in there, to keep the flow going, to keep it professional, and to make sure that you're covering the content that you want to without running out of time.
Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt, Sam. Kay had a question.
Oh, okay.
I saw her hand up.
Yeah, interrupt away. Unmic yourself.
Yeah. Reminder, when you're saving your chat, right, to file, just like you can identify where you want to put that file. But if you're just going to put save chat, I always try and remember immediately after the meeting to go back to that save chat and identify what meeting it was. So usually name of the meeting and date, because otherwise, I mean, I realized very quickly that I was saving, 2 or 3 Zoom trainings a day. I'm like, then I tried to go back and look at where, that a specific Zoom training and realized I had to go through 12 in order to find the one I was looking for. So just a reminder.
Nope, totally get it, totally get it. And I think Joli left us because she had to get off at 11, so she gave us an extra 10, 15 minutes. So, and sometimes you just got a Houdini. Like, what a great example. Thanks, Joli, who's no longer here to hear us talking about her. Sometimes you just got to leave a meeting because it went over. All right, well, if there isn't anything else, Cindy, Olivia, do you have any closing words for us? Or everyone in the room, if you're not a member and would like to become one, please don't hesitate to join us. We are an amazing resource and entity. If you have further questions about any of that or anything you've seen today, don't hesitate to reach out to any one of us. We're happy to be a resource, as you well know. Okay? That being said, get out of here. Go get some work done for me.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Joli.
You're very welcome. Thanks, ladies. You guys are awesome.